Taoiseach.
Sorry, will you stay quiet, please, and let the Deputy make his point? Thank you.
Taoiseach, this morning there were 479 citizens, and I use the word citizen advisedly, languishing in trolleys on hospital corridors. The second highest number, 40 citizens in Our Lady of Lourdes in my own constituency. I've been raising this issue consistently at Leader's Question. It predates my election to this institution. But 3 times I've raised with you a letter from HICWA which points out that if recommendations it made in 2012 had been implemented, the current risk to patients would have been significantly reduced. You have yet, Taoiseach, to respond adequately to me on this issue. This deepening crisis is absolutely unacceptable, and you should start your answer to me by acknowledging that. What does the Minister of Health say when he's not talking to the Minister for Justice, when he's not smirking at Fianna Fáil? What does he say? He says that this problem is a feature of our dysfunctional health system. He says this is nothing new. He says it only stands to reason that lives could be lost. But Taoiseach, he's the Minister for Health. He's not a neutral commentator. One could presume from his answers that lives have already been lost. Now, is this not a national crisis? Is this not a totally unacceptable situation? And you have refused to deal with it. There's been a punch and judy act between you and Fianna Fáil on these deadly serious issues. You allocated 25 million to the Fair Deal scheme.
Question,
that
please.
deals only with 300 citizens. That's only a quarter of those who have been clinically discharged. You give more to the consultants in Irish Water. So, Taoiseach, will you acknowledge that this is a national crisis, and will you put in place emergency measures to tackle this crisis?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
I've just said in response to the question from the leader of the party with no health policy that this is a matter of challenge for government. And Minister Varadkar has the full support of the government in making arrangements to deal with this. That's why he set up the emergency task force to deal with delayed discharges. That's why 25 million was made available, which did reduce the extent of time that people have been waiting for Fair Deal, and allowed for the beds that I've already read out to be opened both on a transitional and on an emergency basis. Of course, Deputy Adams, it's absolutely realistic to say there are serious challenges facing the health system. The profession and the system is actually working better, while it's still challenged, than it was when there was 16 billion being allocated to it. On the 17th of February, there were 755 delayed discharges nationally, of whom 370 are in the Dublin academic teaching hospitals, and 555 of those delayed discharges were destined for long-term residential care. The point made by the eminent doctor is, of course, true. It's not an acceptable situation that you've got so many elderly people in situations like this, and nobody wants to see that. And that's why the review of the Fair Deal will allow for the Minister to present a report to Government dealing with the challenges that are there and how best it might be managed effectively for the future, and also to see the consequences of the extra monies put in here to deal with the opening of beds and traditional beds and emergency beds. And as I said, the budget for 2015 was an allocation of 600 million to cover the overrun of 500 million and about 150 million, which is modest, I suppose, in the context of the overall budget, but is part of implementing the health service plan presented by the Health Service Executive, which has been accepted by Government.
Deputy Adams.
There have been many warnings that patients' lives are at risk as a result of government policy. And last night's prime time focused on this again. And this time the warning came from former National Director of Acute Hospitals, Dr. Tony O'Connell. But it was last September. The Oireachtas wasn't told this by you or by the Health Minister. It came as a dint of a Freedom of Information inquiry from an investigative journalist. So much for transparency, so much for Paddy or Patricia needs to know. When you say the system, you said in response to my first question, the system is working better. But when Dr. O'Connell wrote his analysis, there were 703 delayed discharge patients in the acute hospital system. Last week, there were 755. How is it working better when there are more patients, more citizens? He also said that some patients live permanently in our acute beds and that they have been waiting for over 3 years for placements. Many of these are elderly.
Question,
They're
please.
all
Thank you.
obviously sick. All or most of them have been approved for private nursing care under the Fair Deal scheme, but they haven't got the funding. And there are currently 1,239 citizens waiting 11 weeks for Fair Deal funding. So, Taoiseach, this situation is scandalous. And whatever Fianna Fáil did, this is happening on your watch, your 4 years as Taoiseach. He concluded, Dr. O'Connell, that the long-term solution to this problem is adequate funding of the social care sector. It's ABC stuff. If it's not safe to send citizens home, then you have to provide the social protections that they deserve. That then frees up the hospital beds, and so on and so on. So why have the government ignored this building crisis? Why have the warnings from Dr. O'Connell, the recommendations from HICWA been set to one side? Would you not accept, I put this to you earlier, that this is a national emergency?
Thank you.
And then take emergency measures to deal with it.
Taoiseach.
Well, Deputy Martin has no policy and you have no faith. You decide to go elsewhere to get your own health treatment, which is your choice. Now, he's got no health policy.
Sorry.
And he's,
Sorry, we just said to them, let's hear the reply from Deputy Adams.
he's got no health policy because he wants it all funded by increases in income tax. You have no faith in the Irish health system, which we're now trying to fix for everybody. And the Minister for Health had presented from the HSE the Health Service Plan for 2015. The government responded to that by not only dealing with the 500 million overrun of last year, but putting in another 100 million plus for the budget for this year. Clearly, Deputy Adams, there are challenges here, and nobody wants to see elderly people on trolleys, and nobody wants to see a situation where the cost of keeping people in hospital who do not need to be there, who should be in transitional beds or nursing home beds or other accommodation, that they should be prevented from accessing those, which are far cheaper to supply, so that they can have their medical attention and needs supplied properly.
Thank you.
And that's why it's important that there be a review of the Fair Deal, which will be brought here. That's why I've said that the extra beds that were allocated, which I've read out for you, including in your own locality, 400 home care packages were approved for Dublin, 80 home care packages currently deployed throughout the country and increasing daily. And in order to support the Dublin Academic Teaching Hospitals, Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital and Naas General, a further 165 transitional beds were approved on the 5th of December to alleviate delayed discharges. And on the 26th of January 2015, all of those beds have been accessed.
Thank you.
The question, the situation is that the health service plan was accepted by government. The Minister has the full support in attempting to manage this, which is a challenge. We accept that, of course, and we want to see how best that can be managed in the interest of every patient.
Deputy Fleming, thank you.